Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner 2018, Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and in 2023, 2022, and 2021, we reached out, our team, the team I'm part of there, reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. I'm also a featured content contributor to the Fly Nubian Queen YouTube network that has over 560,000 subscribers. I also sit on the board of Indie Soup Media, which is soon to be launched independent content creators network, and also supplying content to there also. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Good morning, Ryan Knight.
Hey, good day, Dr. Vibe. And for those that do not know who Ryan Knight is, I'm one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We support entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage their business is in, and then help them create a strategy to grow their companies exponentially. And I am an entrepreneur myself. I do run a company called Detailing Nights. So we provide mobile waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses or their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies. And there's a secret project that we're working on to actually get a physical location. So stay tuned for that. We're looking at either Brampton, Etobicoke, or Scarborough. So we might be having a
Scarborough
coming close to you soon. Yes.
All right. Before we go any further, let's do our Monday thing. So the Morning Vibe, this episode of the Morning Vibe is brought to you by the Macmillan Group, providing mortgage solutions one client at a time since 1999, buying, refinancing, investing, or relocating. Call them at in America, not America, Canada. We're in Canada. Let's do Canada first. 905-813-5345, US 904-586-53. I said that wrong. 904-586-5636. Too many 3-6s, 6s. Just such a matter of them. But also, if you don't get it right through my verbiage, you can watch it on the screen. There's a Canada, US, toll-free North American number 866-883-0885 website, the Macmillan Group Inc. inc.com, email address racymcmillan@gmail.com. What's been going on in the world of Ryan Knight?
Yeah, where have I been? So Friday we were at the Whitby Chamber of Commerce Black History Month event. So again, it was great to see you as the keynote and sharing nuggets of wisdom. As you said, like just another conversation.
Another conversation.
Well received. So it's
not just from the stage, but walking around, walking around. And you would if people would have come out, you would have seen Ryan and I together in the same place. Yes. He was on a panel discussion, and they asked me to do a keynote, which was interesting because even up to 8:00 that morning, I was editing that sharing section because there was some things I wanted to put in there, but a great event, full house, house,
and it was at the Ajax Convention Center.
Yep.
So but I was curious, when you do a keynote or that type of presentation, what's the key thing that you want people to remember? Because they're not going to remember the whole thing. So what's usually that key thing?
You know what? And it's interesting you asked that. And this was the part I added slide-wise right at the beginning. Do you remember? My goal is to have people either laugh, cry, think, groan, educate, or entertain.
Ah,
If I can get each person, even for 2 seconds, have any one of those emotions,
gotcha.
my role is complete. So that was the slides I added right at the beginning that morning. I said, you know what?
Oh, gotcha.
I could just jump right in, but I said, okay. Uh, and also, too, a key thing: find out from the people who are organizing it what are their audience looking for, right? Because you want to, and it's one of the words I shared from the stage and walking around: alignment. I want something that resonates with them. I just don't want to be another talking head. So it was a mix of some of my personal, but also people asked me business questions, and that was good. And actually, everyone except one person who I don't know where his business card is. On Friday evening, I sent every person a video thank you who gave me a business card. And
Yes.
actually, there was a person there from an organization who's already booked me for an event in October.
Hey, that's solid.
We spoke there, and I
Yes.
gave her some potential topics. Bang, she said, "This is the date. Do you want morning or afternoon?" Bang.
I
So
love
that
it. I love it.
that was done, and other people. One lady says, "Video message? What do you mean? I'm so happy to get. I want to see what this video message is all about." So
Yes,
they're
yes.
all sent. They're all on the way. There's some people that have responded, some others not, but I did what I was supposed to do, and
Yeah.
I said I'd share with them or follow, contact them within 48 hours. I did in 24.
Mm.
So that was good. But yeah, I know I know I had positive impact on at least one person there. And yeah,
Mm.
because I didn't get out of there. The event ended at what?
You
12ish or so.
close. I think you're packing up chairs and turning off the lights. You're the
No,
last person to leave.
for some reason people wanted to ask me questions. So
Yes. Yeah.
just
That was
I'm just
good.
sharing, suggesting the situations that people brought to my attention. I just hear my suggestions, and that is good. Now, just an inside secret, folks, that I don't just send video messages just to send them for the good of my health. I do. They make me healthy because I love sending them. But the thing is, the software I use tells me when they've looked at them.
Right. Right. Right.
So that was a fun event. Like I said, the night.
Mhm.
Go ahead. You have more questions? Go for it.
Well, I was curious because that Black History Month event, the audience was, I'll say, diverse. So I'm curious
Well,
your
let's be
perspective.
honest. The audience was 85% not black.
Yes,
Let's
yeah,
call it it
absolutely.
is.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
call it as it is. Yes.
So now it makes me think because I was at a school Black History Month event,
Mm-hmm.
and they were only doing it for the Black students, and
Mm-hmm.
it occurred to me that the entire school should hear from the people that were on the panel. So I'm curious your perspective of Black History Month events that are typically only for the audiences, only for the Black community, opposed to uh, extending the audience to whether it's white, Asian, and
Yeah,
other.
that's a great question, because you and I later on today are going to be in the opposite environment that we were in on Friday, right? Because Ryan
Yes.
and I are going basically after we finish this, with half an hour after we finish. I'm driving. Ryan's drive is longer, but I'm driving down to St. Catharines, about an hour and 15-minute drive
Yes,
for
yes.
1 hour on a panel and coming back. But
Yes.
it's worth it. But I think you can never go wrong. And it was a not a challenging sharing session I had to do on Friday, because I was talking about family and my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people, regardless of background,
Mm-hmm.
family, profession, challenges, hurts, harms, but also challenging them. So if you remember at the end, I said, all I started was a laptop, a microphone, and a dream. And I said to the audience, what do you have that can help Black Canadians or African Canadians? I'm changing it now. I'm using African Canadians, and we'll get to that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have that can help African Canadians? So sharing some of your story, some of your challenges, some of your victories, and then call to action.
Right. Yeah.
So those are just foundation. And so the audiences may be different, but there's some core things. And then aligning again, finding out from the organizers as much as possible what type of audience is it, demographic, psychographic, etc. So
Right.
the key is doing your research ahead of time.
Yeah, and I like the takeaways, because that's one thing I've noticed is it's one thing for people just to hear you talk, but when you actually can issue them somewhat of a challenge or
Yes.
something that they can action and tangibly like do after the presentation, I find it sticks a bit more, and you can actually follow up with them later at another saying it's like, hey, did you actually execute what you committed to do when we spoke?
Well, and a master at this is the gentleman right here, Wayne
Hey,
Harris,
yes,
right?
yes.
Wayne Harris has been like a public speaker. I don't like calling myself when I do that. I'd say I like to share. I don't like to speak because to me, if you're speaking, it's me to you. But if we're sharing, we're walking together. And that's something I forgot to do, but it probably I usually do with audiences that don't know me. I say, I'm not here to speak with you. I'm here to share with you. And you can always tell someone in the audience going, well, like, what do you can tell by the body language, what is he talking about? And I say, so I get off the stage and say, can I just borrow you for a second? Yes. I said, I could tell by your body
Ah,
language, you didn't understand what sharing is. So I said, okay, well, if I'm speaking, that means it's just one way. I'm just speaking right to you. But if I'm sharing with you, I grab their arm and we're walking along together. So we make sure that we finish at the finish line together.
gotcha. Love that.
So that's that sort of thing. I didn't get a chance to use it on Friday. In the end, I didn't need to,
Mhm.
but that was one of the things. And yeah, any other questions about Friday? We're together again today, so today will be a different sort of sharing session because
Mhm.
a different basically time I know a different audience. So I'll be a little bit different, so be able to be flexible. So any other questions about Friday, sir?
No, I just again shout out to the Whitby Chamber and Suzanne
Suzanne
there.
Gagnon. I got it.
Yeah.
She's the only person I haven't sent anything to. I've got to send her an email
Uh,
message, but I'm also sending her a video message too.
nice. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, we weren't here on Friday because we weren't here on Friday. We
mm.
were somewhere else on Friday, which is rare. I think one of the few times we didn't do a Friday show.
Oh,
Usually it's like a
true.
Monday of a
Yeah.
long weekend or something like, or a Good Friday, but we usually on the Monday. But I just want to highlight too how I mentioned I said African Canadian. I want to share a great experience I had the night before, and people saying, "Well, weren't you getting ready the night before?" No, the
Ah,
night before I was with this gentleman. So a lot of people will have no idea who this gentleman is. So there is a gentleman named Professor James Small,
mm.
a great African historian, true African historian, and he was brought to town by LA Wade Media. Thank you for having me at the event. His resume is so long, but let's put it this way. He grew up in his years with Malcolm X,
Mhm.
and he had many stories to share. He was at a Buchan restaurant, and LA Wade and him had basically an intimate chat, and they were sitting at this one side and the side of Buchan chairs, and then everyone around them. And they had about a 2.5 hour discussion. He was asking questions, and he took questions from the audience. If anyone knows, does anyone know the series Godfather of Harlem that stars Forrest Whitaker?
Ah, gotcha. Yes.
Yes, he is a historical consultant for that series.
Right.
So yeah, he's been featured in documentaries such as Hidden Colors, Out of Darkness. He's does so yeah. He's also a consultant and narrator for the Smithsonian Channel documentary Cassius Clay, Becoming Ali.
Whoa.
So yeah. So we had a great conversation before and after the event, and we are going to be having a conversation this week because he has said he'd volunteer some of his time to do some Black Men circles online.
Mhm.
So very excited about that opportunity. So there's some Black men out there. Dr. Vibe's going to be reaching out and say, hey, do you want to take part in this discussion offline with Professor Small? I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Gotcha. And so you're saying that sparked the African Canadian or Canadian
No,
African American?
he regards when we say Black American, he says, no, we're African first.
Gotcha.
We're African first. He said that many of the challenges that we have as people of our color, the answers are going back to our history. The
Mm-hmm.
answers are from our history. So I'm making. So correct me if I do it wrong, but I am African Canadian. I'm not Black Canadian. I am African Canadian. So
Gotcha.
it was one of the great many learning points because I was just like this for 2.5 hours, and
Right.
he was no farther than a foot away from me,
Yes,
to my
yes.
to my left, and I was just there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just listening to wisdom. The man
Mm,
has 8 children, married to the same lady for over 35, 40 years, eight
right.
children, two of them adopted from Ghana, and 23 grandchildren.
Yes.
Professor Small is
Mm,
amazing, amazing.
yeah, that's excellent.
Fitness IQ says, morning, gentlemen. Thank you. Good morning, KSF, EYL, RWFQ. And Wayne Harris says, yeah, I've seen him on IG and Facebook. Deep knowledge. Absolutely. Wow. Very deep knowledge. So that's one of the goals for this week, to have a offline conversation with Professor Small and get some more wisdom and have him in some online circles with some other Black men that I know. And you go, wow, yes, wow, absolutely, absolutely. So, and I see you're pitching on Saturday.
Hey, so for those that want to join the delegation, we are making a trip downtown Toronto to the CBC building. We're Dragon's Den. We have the Dragons in our sights. We got a target. I guess West Hall should be our main target, but definitely whoever wants to invest in us. So they're doing their open auditions for the Dragons Den show, season 19, which is quite remarkable that there's been 19 seasons. And a couple of my favorite dragon, well, one of my favorite dragons is back on the show from last season. Well, this current season, Robert Herjavec. So he joined the judges again. So definitely want to be able to pitch to him, Arlene, Wes. So if anybody else has an idea that their business could be funded by the dragons, I would say join us. We're gonna do info session before, because there's an application online that you do have to fill out. So we're gonna walk people through how to do the application, and then Saturday morning, February 10th, we're meeting downtown for about 9 a.m. So if you're interested in pitching, and again, don't talk yourself out of it. If you have an interesting idea and a business that you think could use investment, I would join us and pitch at the open auditions for Dragon's Den. You're thinking of joining us, sir? You gotta pitch anything?
Uh, Maybe it's short notice, but I would say interesting enough with that. I've actually interviewed one of those dragons.
Okay. The one that owns the pizza or the
The
movie
Italian
theaters?
Vincent Guzzo.
Okay, yes, yes.
I interviewed him on another platform that I co-host, the Dad Show. We interviewed him about a
Yeah.
year ago, Vincent Guzzo. Out of all, like, I haven't watched that show in a long time, but I do respect Robert Hirsch. Actually, met him a few years ago. I don't know where we were, but I think he was there with his kids at
Okay.
some restaurant, and I think I don't know why I just took a picture. She said, "Hey, let's take a picture." I said, "Okay," but I don't remember where it was. But I did meet him. He's not a tall guy. He's not a tall.
True. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's not a tall guy. But maybe I'll go. It's that's we'll save that for Friday. That's a whole other conversation itself.
Okay.
And I have. Look at this.
Mhm.
Maine Harris is already in. Make sure you have sales if you want to get their money. Bigger sales helps.
Absolutely.
You know what? You know what? You should hire Wayne Harris to pitch for you.
Right.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I'm not
Hey,
saying. I'm just
Wayne could go down
saying.
and pitch himself. Join us for the delegation.
No. Okay. One
Yes.
other thing too. Opal Inspire. Good morning, Opal Inspire. Good morning. Hope everyone's following her on
Mm.
YouTube. Yeah. So you're pitching. Oh, so some other things. We haven't got into. There's other things. We got to do some regular things here. Subscribe to the
Oh,
Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Hit the notification button, and also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Also follow Ryan on all the different platforms that he's on. So let me just put it up here. Follow him. We have our friend coming on, but we're going to do it after our break.
mhm.
All right. And that's all the places you can follow Ryan. Also, what do we got? To advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I host, contact me. Email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Also hit our Discord group. My goal is now just to put at least one valuable article each week up there. And actually, I'm going to try and put one up. Well, not today. Today's a crazy, crazy show. And also, speaking of Wayne Harris will be on the show this Friday talking about Black History Month financial foundations. What do you need to make it financially today? I wouldn't miss that conversation.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
I think will be a very, very good conversation to check out. What else? And good morning, Shirley. Good morning, Shirley. Good stuff.
Hey.
We got a lot of family in the house. But yeah, so that's what's coming up. Oh, if you're following, and hopefully you're following Dr. Vibe on the platforms, especially YouTube. Look at this. Your Gray Matters. Good morning, everyone. Your Gray Matters. Good morning. Good morning. I am scheduled. Now it's gone to late Friday morning after the morning vibe to be interviewing or having a conversation with my language with Camille Kaira, the Minister of Diversity, Canada's Minister of Diversity. Originally, the conversation was supposed to be late Thursday. Now they've just sent me a message looking tentatively late Friday morning. And Ryan, are you not going to the event in Ottawa?
Black History Month reception by the Federal Black Caucus.
Yes.
No, I won't be able to make the reception. Definitely thank you for the invitation. I don't think I do well in receptions. It just seems so cocktaily and yeah. But the next day there is the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub is doing a roundtable with the Minister of Small Business in Ottawa for the ecosystem that got funded.
Which reminds me, coming up this Thursday. So let me. Oh my gosh. Hopefully we can I pull this up before we go to break. There is an event coming up this Thursday. Yes. The Diversity Expo Black Business Edition. This is
who's that held by?
You didn't know about this?
No, sir.
Yes, in celebration of Black History Month, Procurement Assistance Canada, Ontario region, and partners are holding an in-person Diversity Expo Black Business Edition on February 8th from 12 to 4 at the Scarborough Civic Center.
Oh, nice.
You didn't know about this? I thought you were everywhere.
You know, I hope I'm not supposed to be there. So I gotta check my emails because I know I was talking with the Manzi since their last Diversity Expo, but it was virtual. So I guess this is gonna be the first one. Back in person.
So if people, I'll see if I can put up the link in the chat section, but I'll just show you quickly the link that I'm going to put in the chat, hopefully. And sometime during the conversation, Chrome tab, registration form. Okay, this is what the registration form looks like. And it's like, so the event will include presentations, panel discussions, and an interactive trade show expo with Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, Business Development Bank Canada, Global Affairs Canada, Trade Commission Service, and community partners. Canadian Black Chamber. What do they got against ACBN? Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, Black Business and Professional Association, Black Opportunity Fund, Nobellum, Black Entrepreneur Alliance, Black Founders Network to key highlight resources. Wow. Okay, how come? Okay, people, why aren't ACBN there?
You see what happens when you're about to win the People's Choice? Then the people rebel. So speaking of which, buyblacks.com. I one time again just wanted to say thank you, even if we don't win, but we shall put into the universe that we are victorious. Okay. But thanks for the nomination for the People's Choice Award for the buyblacks.com. I should check out, because I know I talked to him about it. Maybe I just didn't respond to an email.
All right. Well, and for them. Unfortunately, I have to attend a transitional ceremony that morning, but I'm because in Scarborough, I'm seeing if I can at least drop in for about half an hour to the event. I'm gonna see. Actually, I have a 2:30 appointment. I'm gonna see if I can push it to 3, so I can, because it's in Scarborough. Wow, an event in Scarborough. Wow. All right. So, Fitness IQ, I need the mafia. We'll talk offline about that. She goes, yes, a Scarborough ting. Yes. All right. So we're gonna take a quick little break and then we'll get our friend up for the morning. You are watching the Morning Vibe live on February 5th on various channels all around the world. So we'll be back in just a moment.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harry Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harry Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that don't always represent the best of us. The diversity. Like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. Helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right. Good morning, Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. As per always, much thanks for your support. And we got a few more comments before we get our friend on. Fitness IQ Cam, yes, thank you for the condolences. Actually, it's a friend of my father who grew up. They've known each other for like 60, 70 years, has transitioned. Eunice Crayon, good morning. All right. And I will get that link for that business expo this Thursday during the conversation. I'll share it out on all platforms. But today, people need to know the Canadian Black music. Oh, you know what? I got it wrong. Phil's going to get mad at me. He's got the Canadian Black Music Archives officially opened last month. Unfortunately, I could not make it. And Phil's nodding his head. You got it right. So I just wanted to pause and get it right. Open last night, and their mission is to research, preserve, amplify the rich and largely untold history of Black Canadians and the many music genres they excelled in and influenced. And Phil and I have known each other for a while. And when he told me about this opening, I was very happy to hear about this finally happening. So today, no better time to talk about during Black History Month or Black Music Month, anytime. Forget one, just a good time to talk about it regardless. Bringing to the Morning Vibe family, Mr. Phil Vassell, what's going on?
I'm great, man. Happy Black History Month to yourself and Ryan.
We need a favor from you. We need you to adjust your camera because we cannot see much of you right now. So let's put the camera a little bit more. Okay.
How's that?
If you can do a little bit more, or you sit up straighter. One of the two.
I'll sit up straight. My mom always used to tell me that.
All right, there we go.
Yes.
There we go. Good morning.
Glad to have you. Good to meet you.
Yeah, how are you and the family doing?
We're all good, man. Thanks for asking. And it's a great time to be Black.
All right, I love that.
Well, we must say we're Black because we're beautiful, and we're beautiful because we're Black, and we're Blackalicious.
Amen.
All right. So, you know what? I've known you for a while. Ryan, I don't think's ever met you. And there's other people here that have no idea about Phil and Donna Vassell. So I think if you can share some of your story first, and then we'll get into the CBMA.
Well, I'll try to give you the Coles Notes version, which
Okay,
means,
and hey, there's some people don't even know what that
which
means. So
means
just
a date. Well, the short version.
there you go.
Yeah, I've had a pretty varied career. I started out as a journalist on campus radio, CIUT-FM at the University of Toronto, then transitioned to CBC television, working as a reporter in Windsor, Ontario, working at national TV news as a researcher, producer. And after that, I had this great conversation with an anchor at CBC at the time, Sheldon Turcotte, who at the end of a newscast basically said, Phil, what do you want to do here? And, I said, I want to have a long, successful career at CBC, just like you. And he said to me, don't do it. And I gave him the strange look. What are you talking about, Sheldon? And he says, well, look, I should have left this place a long time ago, but I got 5 years left to go before my pension. And he said, get out, experience the world, travel, do things, and then maybe come back. But you need to get out. Like, who tells a young up and coming journalist to get out?
Right.
You know what I mean? But in less than 5 years, when Sheldon was supposed to take his retirement package and go off into the sunset, he passed.
Okay.
And at that point, I took what he said to heart. I got married, Dawn and I got married, went to Brazil, had a great time. And we came back and we started Word Magazine, which is an award-winning publication that published for 21 years. And after the internet started eating everybody's lunch, those who were publishing, I decided to transition to produce 3 music festivals: the Toronto Urban Music Festival for about 16 years, the Irie Music Festival for about 20 years, and the Saga City Music Festival. All of these had a conference component because I believe in education. So there was a lot of discussion, keynote speakers to share their insights. And of course, the pandemic changed everything. And so we transitioned to producing what I felt was a missing link in the Canadian story. And that is, a Black music archives dedicated to sharing and educating people about our contributions for the last 100 years, going back to someone like, let me say over 100 years, because I discovered that there was the Ball Jubilee Singers, which started around the late 1800s. And of course, everyone knows, I hope, everyone knows about Dr. Nathaniel Dett, who I often say was to the early 1920s what Drake is to this modern era. And a lot of people don't know about Nathaniel Dett, but that's the point. Our job is to now research, document, and preserve the history. A lot of it is really compelling history of Black Canadian musicians and those who are adjacent to the musicians, to share that information as part of the education system so the current and future generations of youth can walk with their chest out, knowing that they made a valuable contribution to Canadian music. And to quote a friend of mine, Michael Williams, Black Canadian music is Canadian music.
Mm-hmm.
So where did the intuition come to get this started? So what is some of the background behind the CBMA, the journey?
Well, I think one of the things we recognized, Dr. Vibe, is that we had 20 years of content, 21 years to be exact, of content. About 50% of Word Magazine's content And thankfully, we were an award-winning magazine, so there's a lot of trust and credibility that came with publishing Word magazine, including winning a Harry Jerome Award for entrepreneurship. We had all this content, and a lot of people kept saying, well, when are you going to come back with a Word? Are you going to do it online?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we felt that ship has sailed, but we had a lot of content across the arts and culture spectrum that needed to be preserved. And once we started looking at the preservation and the archiving of what we had, we realized that since music was the biggest component of that, we began talking about a music archive. And so in discussing that, we started looking around to see what was going on out there. And outside of perhaps Northside Hip Hop, which was being done by a friend and colleague, we decided, Mark Campbell is doing hip hop history north, but Black music is more than that.
Right.
Okay. And I felt that our publication represented the spectrum. We were doing some of the first stories on not just hip hop and R&B, which everybody gets and everybody knows, but we talked about jazz. We talked about African music before it was Afro beats. Okay. We talked about Caribbean music, reggae and soca. We talked about Latin American music. So we were always about representing the diaspora in terms of music. And this felt like a natural way to transition in creating an archive that would have all those components and not just talk about the Drakes and the Weekends and the Oscar Petersons and people like that, Deborah Cox. I mean, a lot of our American friends who are tuned in this morning are familiar with those names. But there's so many more that, due to the fact that they were independently produced records, okay, nobody got to hear the full complement of what was out there.
Right.
And I can tell you, having researched this for the past 3 years and the previous life with Word Magazine for 21 years, I kind of had a huge advantage in knowing a lot of these artists. And we had writers covering these artists, interviews, and that sort of thing. So that became our pathway to producing what we call a reimagined archive. I was having a meeting with a friend this weekend who's also doing an archive, and she said she wasn't comfortable with the term archive. She preferred the term database.
Okay.
Because when you think of an archive, you think about the dusty section of
The
library.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't have quite the cachet. And we said, okay, we're going to reimagine what that archive is going to look like, still working with, the glam sector, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, because that's where we belong. And we decided, well, let's reimagine this. What does reimagining an archive look like? Well, you can go to the archive and it's a one-stop shop. You're going to find bios. You're going to find, video footage, assuming you can have it, depending on how far you go. You're going to have articles. You're going to have a discography. You're going to be able to listen to some of this music on Spotify if you like.
Sure.
And it's all there on the website at thecbma.com. So that became our, call to arms, if you will, to say, look, the young people need to know about this. Of course, the older ones too. But if you're talking about representing our story, then it's essential that that becomes part of the greater history of Canadian music. And, you know, my personal view, I might be a little biased, but we have a disproportionate impact on Canadian music, even though that story hasn't been fully told. And in many ways, guys, I liken it to Hidden Figures. I don't know how many of you guys saw that film, but it was these African American female mathematicians who were instrumental in the NASA program, the NASA's, program that eventually got, man to the moon, as it were. And their stories wasn't widely known. And I felt a lot like this is so similar in terms of that history. And so we said, you know what? This is a passion project. This is a necessary project. This is going to be something I'll be working on until I'm pushing up daisies somewhere.
Yes,
you know what I mean? But we need to know this because it creates a sense of belonging that we as Black people have here in Canada. And oftentimes, because we don't see ourselves in those stories, we don't feel that kinship to Canada. Oddly enough, I'll tell you a quick story. I used to ask my interns when they came in to assist with the research, can you name me 10 songs, 10 artists who are African Canadians, as you put it? And most of them couldn't do it.
Wow. That's rough.
I'm curious. These are university and college educated folks.
Right. So I'm so curious, is there an artist that as an African Canadian we must know about, hear about? You mentioned Nathaniel Detts. Is there someone else that before we even end this week, we have to go and learn more about this person?
I'm going to let Phil go first, but I have one that comes right off the top of my head.
There's so many.
Yeah. There's not.
I really don't want to bias it, but I'll say this to you. There's a woman, the older sister of Oscar Peterson. Her name is Daisy Peterson Sweeney. Okay, who taught Oscar to play.
Come on.
Who taught Oliver Jones to play.
Okay.
Who taught Joe Seeley to play. Who taught a good friend of mine, Russell Kelly, who's a folk musician, to play. And it doesn't stop there. There's so many others. And she was instrumental, in creating the Montreal Jubilation Choir, one of the oldest choirs that we have in this country.
Wow.
She's never made an album.
Right. But instrumental in the
foundation. Should she be in the archives?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so many other musicians. I'd love to hear what Ed has on his list.
Yeah.
But there's many more.
For me, and a lot of people don't know him, but a lot of people do know him. But he has more, I believe he has more recognition outside of Canada than inside of Canada, is Oscar Peterson. And let me tell you, there's a gentleman who has a YouTube channel named Rick Beato. He has over 3 million YouTube subscribers. And he does stuff about music, interviews people, etc. About 2 or 3 years ago, he did a post in his said the greatest solo of all time. And it was a live performance by Oscar Peterson with a guitar player, Barney Kessel, and I can't remember who the bass player was. And I'm gonna recommend, even if you know us, even if you don't know anything about music, when you see why he said it was, in his opinion, if not the greatest or one of the greatest solos of all time, you realize the talent that we have left behind or ignored here. And when you mentioned Michael Williams, even though he wasn't an artist, he has been so critical. And again, we could go for hours just on Michael Williams, but people have to realize that he was the first well, he's an African American, but on Canadian television, he was a black man talking about black music on a music channel, which back in those days was what? Like, and he brought a lot of unknown Canadian and non-Canadian talent to the attention, to the eyes and ears of not only people in this country, but globally. And I had a chance to run into him a few years ago, and we actually had him on the show a few times. Michael is you know what? Michael should get an Order of Canada.
Well, Michael and I have been talking a lot lately because I revere his accomplishments much as you do.
Absolutely.
Because what most people have to understand is that until much music came along, and there's a film out now talking about the history of that, Michael was a part of that. And, prior to Moses Neimer's Much Music being launched, there wasn't a thing called black radio in this country.
Yeah.
Okay. At best, we would have campus radio, and there was by the time I left U of T Radio, CIUT, there might have been about 40 of those stations across the country, and they were the lifeline to a lot of, artists who couldn't get on the big labels. So there were independent rappers and other artists whose only avenue for airplay was on
college radio. And in Toronto, college radio, Ryerson.
Yes.
Especially Ryerson.
Ryerson started it before CIUT came along.
Exactly.
And
Ron Nelson.
And Ron Nelson was another pioneer in the space. His show, The Fantastic Voyage, became, Saturday morning school for a lot of people who loved the music but couldn't get access to it.
What was the name of the gospel show that was on CIUT?
That would have been Courtney Williams.
That's the name I was looking for. Yes. Yes.
And again, these are people that, it was a passion for them. They weren't getting paid. Campus radio, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
And there were guys, my brother who lives on the West Coast in BC tells me about this one guy who was on co-op radio for 40 years.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. So this is an untold story, just like Hidden Figures. And for you to get into a major daily, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the Toronto Sun, the National Post, even Now Magazine, which preceded Word Magazine, it was very difficult. And how many of those guys know how to put together a proper press release? I'm telling you, as a former editor and publisher of Word Magazine, some of that stuff, if I wasn't sympathetic to the music they were doing, you might not take a second look.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? So they spent all their money putting together the records, but at the end of it, they didn't have public relations component to their budgets. Right? And so you may get on campus radio, but campus radio, for the most part, wants to play the hottest songs outside the country.
Yeah. A lot of alternative, like this is going back the days of campus radio stuff like CFNY.
Yes.
Back in the days of Live Earl Jive, David Marsden.
Yes. David.
Yeah. And Ivor Hamilton, all these people.
And here's one, Deadly Headley
Jones. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But he eventually moved to California. And one of the things we're doing now, and you both are invited, we're having a Black History Month event at the City of Toronto Archives building, 255 Spadina Road at Davenport from 4 to 8. That's a Friday. And you guys are welcome to come in and say hello. And one of the exhibits that we have there is on an African Canadian artist Now you got me saying African Canadian.
There you go.
By an African Canadian artist by the name of Eric Mercury.
Yes. Yes.
Eric Mercury is an amazing talent. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some people may not know that he once dated Roberta Flack and produced a number of tracks for Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway. Mm-hmm. And this guy was an instrumentalist. He was an arranger. He was a producer. He was a singer. He did some amazing things. But even in this country called Canada, more people in the States know about this guy than they do here. Absolutely. In the Great White North. And to me, that should not happen. There's no way that you have this guy who was so prolific. And apparently, you know that commercial, Be Like Mike?
Yes.
He sang the chorus for Be Like Mike. So it was a cultural force as well. It's just phenomenal, the history that you find once you start digging. And I get excited because now we've said to people, and I say this to your audience as well, we have a submission form on the CBMA.com. Send us names of artists that you think should be in the archives. Chances are we don't know. Mm-hmm. Some we do, but there's such a wide assortment of legitimately compelling stories of artists who are there that don't have the opportunity to be acknowledged. They were never given their flowers. Okay. And it had nothing to do with the artistry of those artists. It had nothing to do with the quality of their music. Trust me, I've worked as an editor publisher, and it's very hard to get the attention of an editor.
Gotcha. For
a mainstream publication. Conversely, if you look at the Canadian radio ecosystem, until Denham Jolly, who I know you know quite well,
yes,
almost like family,
yes,
there wasn't a Black-owned and operated radio station in this country. And this happened, what, in the 2000s?
Yeah, you know what, as you bring up Mr. Jolly's name, if you can, I think he would be a very interesting interview.
Well, Ed, I'm coming to ask you for all the advice you can give freely.
Okay, all right.
Because we're going to be doing a series of podcasts to talk to not just the musicians. I mean, that'll take a lifetime.
Yeah.
But also people who were adjacent to the artists.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay?
And these individuals need to be given their flowers. And historically, there's no way you can convince me that wasn't very significant.
It was huge.
What Jolly did.
It was huge. And even going back before that, I think on another session, some of the record executives who are still around today, back in then, like one of the big supporters was a gentleman named Kevin Shea.
Was he at Universal or what?
He was at Universal, but he started at Attic Records.
Oh, that's right.
And that I think, and when Maestro first started, Maestro and Farley, he was there for that time, and then he went to RCMA, which became BMG. Then he ended up at Universal, then Warner Music. Still, some of those executives at that time from that are still around today. Kim Cook, still alive. Kevin Shea, still alive. Steve Waxman, still there. A number of them are still alive. And it'd be interesting to get, if you can, Ivor Hamilton, who was Polygram. I don't know, he may be retired now, but I know I was talking to someone a few years ago. He's still alive, getting their lenses of things back in that time. There's a lady named Sarah Norris.
I remember Sarah at Universal.
Sarah Norris. You may not know, many people may not know who she is, but have you heard of a band called The Roots? Okay. Sarah Norris was instrumental in having The Roots play their first concert in Canada.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. Dr. Vibe worked in the industry for a number of years. And when I was pitching these record companies for advertising in Word Magazine, this brother was instrumental in breaking the ice, as it were.
I'm humble. Well,
So,
I will take some flowers, but also Craig Mannix needs to be given.
well, Craig Mannix is now a vice president at Universal.
Exactly.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Okay.
But back in those times, yeah, it was a struggle. But Sarah Norris, huge props, because when they came to Toronto, and actually the funny thing is they were coming the same weekend that the Junos were happening. But she said, no, we're going to make it happen. I remember her importing boxes of 12-inch vinyl of the Roots. No one knew it, but the DJs knew who they were. And the DJs, but she is instrumental. So I think just suggestion-wise, and we can certainly chat offline, I can give you some, like, if I get you in contact with Kevin Shea, he'll probably be able to give you contact information to a lot of these people who were back in that time, would be a good part of the growth of that. You know,
and can I ask you, do you remember Steve Kane?
Yes.
Right. Well, when we had this pop-up launch back in November, someone posted some stuff from our launch, and Steve Kane was like, "Why didn't I know about this?"
There you go.
You know,
right? And, I can't remember the guy's.
Yes.
Oh, there's a gentleman's name I'm trying to. Lee Marshall.
Yes.
Okay, was at a funeral. Took my dad to a funeral. One of his friends passed away. Oh, who? What? Trying to remember. Can't remember. But we're at a funeral, and it was. You may not know this. In Carl Mullins, his daughter.
Of course, Carl Mullins is one of the main figures. Okay, who was instrumental.
This should be called Reminisce Monday. Go on.
Yes, we're going to do that again.
Yes.
Look, Carl Mullins was one of the people that I would call one of the architects.
Yeah.
In terms of helping to build the profile and the opportunities for Black Canadian musicians, many of whom came from the Caribbean.
Yes.
So now you have this situation where Carl's two daughters are now part of the industry.
Yes.
You know,
one of I can't remember the daughter, very involved in reggae music, does a show called Reggae Vibes for years.
Yes.
On Vibe 105.1 in Toronto.
Correct.
But
Correct.
when Carl had transitioned many years ago, and about in the last year, so his wife passed away. But at the funeral, one of the people that spoke was Lee Marshall.
Was Lee a broadcaster?
Yes. And then also, so we're out in the parking lot and speaking with Lee, and all of a sudden this lady comes up. Oh gosh, it was Peter Tosh's daughter.
Whoa.
Going, what? And she's just going, okay. So we're going to get back to the CBMA because we go on for sure. But Wayne Harris, this is a great one. Ms. Sweeney taught my sister and others to play piano in Montreal. Wow. My cousin was a lead sister in the Jubilation Choir in the 80s with Cece Walker and Maurice Messiah. Met Oliver Jones at his golf event.
Gotcha.
This is the history we're starting to unearth. You know what I mean? Because I've always felt this, guys, that and this is one of the reasons why Donna and I started Word Magazine. I discovered that you got to tell your own story.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Got to control your own narrative.
You got to control your own narrative. And, you know, when I was at CBC television, you know, I was a researcher, so I was going out and getting guests to be interviewed, and then I'd have to come back and determine with the reporter or the anchor whether or not these people make good television. Okay. And whether they're good interviews. But as a reporter, some of those individuals, I would not get the opportunity to interview them. Okay. This is a heavyweight, Phil. I don't think you're going to be the guy to handle this.
Gotcha.
So you have somebody else over here do it. You know, that kind of attitude.
Right.
Now, when we started Word Magazine, within a month, I was able to get an interview with the premier of the province at the time, who was the NDP leader. What's his name? Bob Ray.
Bob Ray.
Okay.
And I sat down with Bob Ray in his office at Queen's Park and had as much time as I needed to interview him for the magazine. And at the end of it, I said to myself, do you think you could get to interview Bob Ray for CBC television? At the time, hell no.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Starting the publication opened up a lot of doors to being able to talk to people that we felt was relevant to our audience. And to get back to the CBMA, it's much similar in that, you know, we're making an editorial decision in a way, in terms of, is this person, you know, have they made a contribution? Are they compelling? Can you tell their story with a bio, with a video, with articles digitized, with their discography? In fact, one of the early people that we spoke to when we were creating this archive said, you know what, it would be interesting if you guys could also add the discographies.
Oh,
and
wow.
We did.
Yes,
and we realized that Oscar Peterson had over 200 records that he participated in.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was another brother, Eddie Bullen, who's a pianist.
Oh, yes. Eddie Bullen and Quincy Bullen. Yep.
Quincy, his son. Now the two have a tour together.
Yep.
Okay, father and son combo. They're both wicked pianists.
Yep.
Yes.
And you know, Eddie has performed on over 200 records as well. So to say these guys are prolific is an oxymoron. You know what I mean? So these are the stories. There's a woman out in, I think she's in Alberta now. She's 99 years old.
Hey.
I forget her name, but she has been singing for so long, and she was one of the first Black women to host a television show on CBC. You know, and so their stories, in her case, well, I think CBC has done a couple of pieces on her. Obviously, CBC would be front and center knowing who she is. But whether you're talking Toronto, whether you're talking Little Burgundy in Montreal, whether you're talking Hogan's Alley in BC, the fact is that's where you were going to find the musicians, because these were Black communities by and large that had a disproportionate number of people, and conversely, you'd have a disproportionate number of artists. There's a club in Montreal called Rockhead's Paradise that was started back in 1928 by a Jamaican brother, and it lasted for years.
Yes.
It was the only one, and when you watch the video of the history of this club, it had all the great names of African American jazz musicians that came through, some of the biggest names, you know, and it became a space and a place where the Black community could congregate and share stories, share a drink, share, you know, food, and have a sense of community. So, you know, as Michael says, Black history and Black music is indivisible.
Yeah.
Black music is Black history.
All right. Just want to catch up on some comments here. What's up, Macmillan Group? What an amazing nostalgic conversation. This takes me back. This is so interesting from Dr. Tachi, who is the host and producer. Well, it's February, so hopefully it's going to come back of Mediascope, which is when it's back, is on live on Instagram, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays, and then on 6 p.m. same day Eastern Time, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and other platforms. She is here. What is up, JG Mars from Colorado? You're late. You're always on time.
You can always catch up.
Yes, there's always the replays.
Yeah.
Dr. Tachi, wow. Some things, some suggestions. I know you never have any work to do.
Yes.
I think that maybe including some DJs.
Well, hey, we honestly believe that DJs are part of this system. DJs are artists, first of all. That's my personal opinion.
Yep.
DJs are artists. And, to let you know, the first one that has been documented, and there's many more to come, is DJ Carl Allen.
Yep.
Who's won 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards for his work over 40 years of being in the business.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I mean, DJs are producers in a sense, right?
They are.
Some are real producers.
They're part of the industry.
And they're essential to the industry. I was reading about Daniel Corderon.
Well, there's another name I was going to, and I don't know if he is still alive.
Apparently he is and living in the UK. That's the rumor.
Well, that I know he moved to the UK. I don't know but that is imperative if you can get him for an interview. Another gentleman too would be a gentleman named J. Robert Wood.
J. Robert Wood. I was involved in J. Robert Wood's application for a black music station.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he never got it. He kept going back and forth, and I met the man, and we stayed in contact for a very long time. I don't want this to be about me at all, but I had this interesting exchange with the CRTC chair, who, when it was my turn to speak, you have 5 minutes to either support or speak against an application. And one person had gone up there prior to me doing my thing and basically lied. And it was my turn. And I went up knowing the rules. And I said, with all due respect, I have to tell you, Mr. Chair, that the person prior to me told some lies in his presentation. And I remember the chair said, Mr. Vassell, I'm sorry, you know what the rules are. You cannot intervene against an intervener. And I said, well, granted, but how do I tell you that he was lying? Is there a way to do that?
Right.
And he says, it will be noted. And I said, thank you. I won't say anymore. And that led to me getting my job at CBC Television, because a couple of people were in the audience, and they took me out for dinner, for drinks afterward, because here was this little dude, standing up to the chair, and suggested that I consider applying to CBC. I eventually did. And I got one of the 2 remaining full-time positions that they were offering at the time. And that started my professional career at CBC.
It's interesting. And before you came on live, and I'm pretty sure you were in the green room, Brian is on his way on Saturday to do some pitching. I think the next time that the Dragons have a pitch, I think the CBA opportunity may be something to present to them.
Hey, it's at CBC. They should be inviting you to come down and pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the first thing we wanted to do, guys, and we have an American audience, so let me speak to American audience here, and I'll come back to this. We may find ourselves there. CBC covered our pop-up launch event at the City of Toronto Archives. And there was a lot of awareness that we generated from that. So kudos to the reporter on that. But I also wanted to say for our American brothers and sisters that most of them might not know that Rick James, we consider Rick James a Canadian.
Okay.
James Johnson, his real name, was avoiding the draft, and so came north.
And actually, it was his birthday on February 1st.
Yes, and would you believe that he was a member of the Minor Birds, a group that had Neil Young and Rick James as members of that group? The Funkadelics came and spent a couple of years living here and making records here because George Clinton wanted to get them out of Newark, New Jersey, because things were kind of hot at the time. So he didn't want them getting into any kind of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Prince
used to live on, had a house on the Bridle Park.
You know what I mean? So this border was fluid. Demo Cates, I just learned, came from Detroit. And I just recently did an interview with a colleague who tells me he was in high school with Demo Cates. You know, and the list doesn't stop there. So
absolutely,
even though we call it the Canada Black Music Archives, the story is much richer. And what you find when you look at these bios, you find that it lives up to Canada's, or at least Toronto's, billing as one of the most diverse cities on the planet. We had musicians, Jackie Mittoo.
Yep.
Okay.
My dad grew up with him. He had dinner at our house when I was younger, many a time.
There you go. He came from Jamaica. Yep. Leroy Sibbles came from Jamaica. Jay Douglas has had a 45-year career from, Jamaica. And the story goes on and on. In soca, there's so many artists there that had connections and roots in Canada, that when you say Canada, you really are talking about a global situation. From the African continent, we have in our event Kobina Aqua Harrison, who is an African musician, multi-instrumentalist. He is one of the many, many African artists that came here. No, they didn't sell 1 million records because they were never given the opportunity in a rock-based infrastructure that was a music industry at the time. Right. But absolutely, when you step back and take a look at their accomplishments, it's undeniable. And if we're not telling our story, then who's going to tell it?
Someone else. So as we start to wind down here, and Ryan, if you have anything you want to interject. So Phil, what can our audience do to help move the archive in a forward, positive direction?
Well, that's easy. There are two ways. The first one is the perhaps easier one, which is to continue to provide us with submissions of artists, because this is a living, breathing entity. It's a digital archive, and we want to be able to share that information, not just with the Canadian public, but we're finding that anywhere from 10 to 15% of the visitors to the site are Americans, African Americans themselves. So it has reach. And we also see another large group coming from Nigeria. Last night at the Grammys, Burna Boy was the first African artist to perform at the Grammys. This is huge because that music is blowing up globally. Okay. And I think it's high time. And I think kudos to the Grammy folks for ensuring that they're now reflecting that, and again, aside from the submissions, we're accepting donations. We're not for profit organization, and we simply can't do this alone. We're doing that with your help. It's first and foremost an educational entity. Already University of Toronto Music Library has added us to their website as a source of information for people looking to do research. York University has done the same. And, that continues. A number of educational institutions now are reaching out and saying, hey, this is a great idea. How can we support you? And I'm saying, financially, we need all the support we can get. We cannot at this time be totally dependent on government funding.
Yep.
We have to be able to have corporate sponsorships. So if you're in a capacity to influence a corporation to donate to this, we'll take 1,000, we'll take 5, we'll take more. Okay? Because each element is going to build and build and build and build and build. And that's how we plan on growing this. Currently, we have about a dozen interns. Some of them are recent graduates and want to develop real life work experiences. Canada is one of the most highly educated countries in the world, second only to Israel, I've been told. And so just having a university degree and coming out, that's no longer enough. A lot of people in the educational system are now demanding that we develop work-study programs, internships, giving people an opportunity to get the skills so that they're more employable. So these people, and I'm dating myself, my team, I call them the latest Benetton commercial.
All right.
Okay. It's as culturally diverse as it gets. And, at the end of the day, I smile and I say, United Nations for the uninitiated, right? But they are passionate about it. There aren't too many people that don't love Black music. Okay. They're inspired by Black music. They feel liberated by Black music, and they want to make a contribution because despite what mainstream media might want to tell us, I think there's some different ways of looking at politics of the day among the younger generation than the older generation. President Obama would not have been elected without a lot of support of young people because they're thinking differently. And so these are people who are not Black, but are passionate about the music. They want to make a contribution, and we welcome that support. And it speaks to their sense as Canadians that, to quote that expression by a sports broadcaster, leaving them out, that ain't right.
There you go. Well, we'll certainly chat offline. I have a number of suggestions in regards, especially, I know you got interns, but also I would say suggestions, maybe some people I can get you in contact with in regards to getting some resources for a few months when it comes to audio, video editing, things like that.
All of those.
Also, a suggestion, maybe putting together a proposal to all the music companies, so they wouldn't say, oh, well, why don't you go to make a proposal to all the multi to chip in a certain amount, so not, or you may make it to one, and if that person goes in first, they get exclusivity, but just have a proposal to some of these music companies, because I don't think it's a hard sell. And I don't know if you have had a talk with Big C over at Universal. I'd be very interested to see if his feedback would be on it, because the benefits are not just musical. It's a cultural proposal. And I think that it's not just music. This is not just good for African Canadians, it's good for Canadians.
Amen. That's our point of view as far as developing this. It's not just about Black people. It's about who we are as Canadians. Most people don't know that Henry DaCosta was the first Black person that was recorded in this country in 1601.
There you go.
We've been here for a long time.
Oh yeah. So our African Americans, we've been here for over 400 years too. So don't worry. Right? No shade against the African Americans who are watching this. Wayne Harris says, I went to high school with DJ Ray and Ricky D. The Biddle family was there as well.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you.
You may need to reach out to him because he may still know some of these people.
But you mentioned it's online. Is there going to be a signature in-person event as well? Like you mentioned, you did the festivals and conferences.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because I keep getting that a lot because of our 20 plus years of producing music festivals in the city in Toronto. So for a lot of people, they see it as a natural transition. Okay. We're not saying no to that, but we aren't ready to say yes yet to that. Yes. Right now, what we're doing is this is the second event that we're hosting on February 23rd at the City of Toronto Archives, and they've embraced us, which is great to see, because their archives need to go further in terms of documenting Canadian, Toronto Canadian history, okay, coming out of the black experience. And I think they would agree with that. So I think, they've opened the doors and, coming up on the 23rd, we'll be featuring some Canadian artists who are in the archives. So for instance, Shakora Saida, a dynamic blues, roots, and soul singer, she's going to be performing there. Jay Douglas, who we spoke about earlier, he's going to be performing there. He's had a 45-year career in Toronto. And Kobina Aqua Harrison has been here for 40 plus years. I worked with Kobina when we produced Word Magazine. And another brother from the continent, Slim Flex. So each time we do a showcase like this, it will be a series of artists who are in the archives or should be in the archives if we haven't gotten to them yet. And basically give people an opportunity to understand the richness and the diversity of the artists who are in the archives, and quite frankly, many of whom never got their flowers.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we're going to call it a wrap because we could go on all day and we should, but I know Phil has things to do. I think, Ryan, you and I have something to do.
I'm sure you guys have things to do. I can stay here all day and talk about it.
I know.
Like I said, this is a passion project for me. And, I'm seeing the results of it. My daughter, my oldest daughter, sent me a note the other day saying she decided to look up Nathaniel Dett in the archive and didn't know anything about who Nathaniel Dett was and loved what she saw. Interestingly enough, it was in mid-1990s that Brainerd Blyden Taylor started the Nathaniel Dett Chorale as a choir that would perform the music of Nathaniel Dett. And here's another interesting factoid. The choir performed at the inauguration festivities for Mr. Obama, President Obama, when he was being inaugurated. Gotcha. So, some great stories are there. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And we want to do what we can to take it out of the archives and present it in a live performance so that people can appreciate the diversity and the richness of the people who are in the archives. So the CBMA has just started, relatively speaking. I tend to talk about us as we are a startup, a digital startup.
There you go. So Wayne Harris says perhaps a federated archive would be simpler. The data rests where it rests, but you have secured and authenticated hooks into it.
Well, Wayne, I'll tell you this. We are interested in connecting with what seems to be a plethora of Black archives that are on the scene. In fact, there was a conference, I think back in August, here in Toronto by a professor at Ryerson, now called TMU, Toronto Metropolitan University. And Dr. Thompson brought together a number of people who are working in the archive space. You know, I was being asked on the weekend, you know, why do you think there's so many archives popping up? And sometimes, you know, we can postulate as to the reason for it, but I just think it's an idea whose time has come. People are much more conscious of our history and are demanding that we have a place among the galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, and even the research that has been conducted by these established government-funded, government-supported institutions. The research is telling us that they need to do better.
Absolutely. Well, data collection in regards to African Canadians, that's a whole other conversation. There isn't enough. There hardly is any. So I think that this will be a help to the remedy of that.
Well, we're going to take the brothers' idea and see if there might be, you know, an alliance of Black archives, many of whom are doing the same thing, perhaps in different provinces. You know, we've reached out to Halifax, Canada's largest and first African American community, and have said to an association out there, music association, we want your help in gathering this data so that we can share it with all of Canada since we're digital. And we're looking at these kinds of partnerships so that we can get at the information and be able to share it.
There you go. On that note, Phil, I'm going to say this is a rich conversation. Only a thumbnail of what I really wanted to get to, but it was all good anyways. But want to say to you, Donna, and your family, thank you for what you have done, are doing, and will be doing when it comes to the CBMA. You always can reach out to myself or Ryan in regards to this and continue the hard work, because it's not hard work anymore. It's hard work.
It's a passion. It's hard work, you know, and I want my children to feel fully Canadian. They were born here, and Canada is the country they know as their home country. Myself, I was born in Jamaica, so, you know, I spent more of my life living here, okay, than I did when I left that country when I was 12 years old.
There you
go. Who am I? I'm Canadian, eh?
All right, my brother. As always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. Be well.
Thank you, sir. Salute.
All right. We'll be in touch.
Happy Black History Month, and we will continue to stay in touch. And
all right.
By the way, great work, my brother. You're doing it, and George Fraser would be proud of you.
100%.
By the way, Ryan is bringing up George Fraser.
When is that?
Yes. March the 1st and the 2nd.
Please send me a note. George is my man.
Yeah, right. He's coming up live in person.
Looking forward to that. Thanks,
right.
Ryan.
Yes.
One last thing. Wayne Harris says Rosemary Sadler would maybe also be a resource for archive access and storage.
Wayne, I got a story for you on February 23rd, and I hope you're in town. Please come on down to the archive, 255 Spadina Road at Davenport. Rosemary Sadler has been asked to speak briefly at our event. I'm a huge fan of Rosemary Sadler with her 20 plus years at the Ontario Black History Society. And she's also was a force in getting acknowledgement, not just for Black History Month with the work of Jean Augustine, who was a sitting member at Parliament in Ottawa, but we
Lincoln,
also have
Lincoln
Emancipation
Alexander.
Day acknowledgements. We have Rosemary Sadler to thank for that. So I wanted to make sure that she was at our event and say a few words, because we're all branches of the same tree, in my view.
There you go. All right. On that note, keep the faith.
Salute to you too, my brothers.
Appreciate it.
Keep the faith. All right, Mr. Knight.
Yeah,
What's coming
gotta
up
run.
this week?
A joke. No, this
Yeah,
week,
usually, you gotta run.
no, it's all good. No, this week is somewhat quiet, and except Wednesday, we'll be heading to Ottawa for the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. They're having their Black Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Roundtable. So we'll be in Carleton University, and then Saturday we're gonna be downtown. Join the delegation. If you have that business idea, as Wayne Harris says, make sure you're making sales. Although the Dragons have invested in pre-revenue. If you remember, Hutsy that got funded from West Hall was pre-revenue. So even if you have a strong idea, I would still put it out into the universe and see if the Dragons will bite. So
I do know entrepreneurs that have had ideas funded.
Absolutely. Yes.
Not to say it can't happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. So even if you have an idea, there may be someone out there to invest. So great conversation today, everyone. Thank you for making it an epic conversation. So as always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Hit the notification button. Follow the Dr. Vibe Show Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, just to advertise your business, product, or service on the show. Please email me, dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. Join the Morning Vibe Discord group. So email me, again, dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. Coming up on this Friday's show, he's made comments on this show, Wayne Harris, on Financial First Fridays. It is the second Friday of the month, but because we were not available last Friday, he's this Friday coming up, talking about Black History Month financial foundations. What do you need to make it financially today? And I think that's it. There's Ryan's contact information for those who want to reach out to him. So I didn't get it into all the platforms today, but the CBMA stuff is wherever you're watching it. The contact information is in your comments section on wherever you're watching this conversation. Put me live or on the replay. There's my contact information. Website, YouTube, Facebook, the dr.vibeshow, Instagram at the dr.vibeshow, and X dr.vibeshow. Replays are scrolling. You can watch replays, Dr. Vibe Show YouTube, Facebook, Afro-Caribbean Business Network, Facebook and YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight, YouTube and LinkedIn. I think that's it. Actually, working on a surprise, a new launch involving the Morning Vibe coming up in the next week or two. So, and it was a suggestion that was by a viewer from Alberta a number of months ago, and we had a conversation online. So something is aligned that is going to make that happen. And Fitness IQ Cam says, enjoyed it. Great. So you may even see myself or Ryan do some Instagram lives today from Brock University.
Yeah. Hey, if you're in town, St. Catharines area, definitely pop in.
So Ryan, when are you leaving?
Yeah, about now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone in the next.
Put up myself and I'll head out.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone in the next half an hour because you never know, and plus we got to be back in town by a certain time too. So
exactly,
it's all be worth it. But hey, we may do some little short IG lives from St. Catharines. So as always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. I'm going to finish off on one last thing. I was chatting to a associate who is retiring after 30 years working for the city of Toronto in social services. You know what she said? Goodbye tension, hello pension.
Right.
We'll see you on Friday, family.